No, I'm muted. Oh, am I
Oh,
there now?
I hear you.
Okay, I hear you too.
I wonder if that had something to do with me because I had a microphone plugged in, but do you think,
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh,
Hmm.
I'm glad I can hear you now.
Yes, me too.
Thank you for coming on. You are my seventh guest and my first girl guest besides my 3-year-old niece.
Oh, thank you. I am honored.
Aw, she couldn't talk much, so I'm sure you can talk more than her.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. You know more words than her. And that's what I don't want to ask you any questions you've been asked before, but if anyone wants to learn more about you, that's obviously listen to your podcast. But you were a great guest on Tom Haley's podcast, Bluegrass Region and Voices.
Hmm.
Um, that's what
Yeah.
I loved, like hearing you grow up and like moving a lot and your interest in like art, photography, and hearing about the little what were the
The
things that people
horses. Yeah.
were in your hands? That was like so fascinating that I could just like only imagine that happening. That was really cool hearing about that.
Yeah, it's a vivid memory, that's for sure.
That is, I bet it was. If you want to um give a promo of your podcast, I'd like to hear it, and that's what I think the name of your podcast is cool, and the idea you have of the appetizer, entree, dessert, like all of that was cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have the Foodies Reviewing Movies podcast, and pretty much each episode, a couple friends and I get together. We talk about two topics that are near and dear to our hearts and stomach, which is food and movies. And I literally just use the intro to my podcast for that because I have it memorized at this point. But pretty much it was a way because during COVID, so many of us were isolated, and so many of us felt alone. I mean, I spent 28 days without seeing anyone else I knew.
That's crazy. I
Yeah,
feel
I started to cabin fever started to happen. I was like the Muppets in the movie when they're like, "We got cabin fever." It was happening over here. So, yeah, I ended up having a friend of mine who's also part of the Lexington Podcasters, which I know we'll talk about at some point. Leo, he also goes by James on that podcast, and he and I are friends from college, so we've known each other since about I'd say 2008, 2009 ish. And he and two of our other friends from college started a podcast, and it just sort of made me feel like I was getting to sit there and have a conversation with a few of my friends. I maybe wasn't inputting anything, but I felt like I was part of the conversation.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is a great way to be able to sort of reconnect. And so when things were able to start be a little safer and we were able to start seeing each other, that's when I started to do the podcast. And so I always have two things that come to mind. I always want people to walk away with. One, learning a new piece of trivia, because who doesn't want to tell this fun fact over dinner or something with some friends and sort of get to impress people, and,
Yeah. And
then the
everyone's
second
doing
thing,
trivia at restaurants now anyway, so they probably need it.
exactly, I'm just arming you with some details for your upcoming trivia, And the second thing is to make people laugh because that's what we all need more of in our lives. There's a lot of negativity that can really bring you down. And at the end of the day, podcasting is supposed to be able, like a movie, an escape, and that's what I'm here for, is to help you do that. So
I've been in a Harry Potter like phase for like the two past 2 days. I'm on this. I need to watch the seventh part one and two. Those are my next one. But I've watched like 5 movies like in the past 2 days. That's like my escape. That's my thing, and that's why I'm so. I mean, I love food too. Obviously, I love food and movies, and that's like the perfect like podcast to listen to if you want either of those and to like learn more about movies. My family is like Trivial Pursuit is like our favorite game, and that's all we talk about is movies and TV. So when I
yeah.
don't know stuff because I'm younger, like I listening to your podcast helps me learn more about them.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, we met from Lexington Podcasters Group, and that's been such a great group to get to know, I mean, other people with podcasts in Lexington, but so you have been so nice to me and Leo York too. I hope he can be on my podcast too one day. Like that would be so cool.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be happy to. You know, that's the one thing is this is a community. Like that's the great part. I joined, guess it was about 3 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago now. Which is hard to believe because time is just fleeting at this point. But yeah, it was this nice little group of people where initially before COVID happened, it sounded like it was where the numbers are now. But it shrunk a little bit because people were afraid to go out and to socialize, you know, even if it was outside sometimes. And so I joined back in when things were very, very small. There was only a few group members, and then people started to come back and it was revitalized. And then you joined, and we want to aim to help each other. That's what this is, you know. It's not a competition, but it's a community, and that's important.
Yeah, it's a good like to have that creative outlet, and that like I've never like been a part of a group that like supported each other's like creative outlets v- like this one.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, that's what we want to hear from people. You know, that's what I get out of it. You know, it's important for all of us because we all need some kind of support at some point, you know.
Yeah. Um, that's what I heard from Tom's podcast that there was a potential and another like big meetup. That's why I'm wearing my Podfest shirt.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
I
are.
love how comfy it is and like how big it is.
It's so soft. Yeah, I'm not wearing the same shirt. I'm wearing a Lexington Sporting Club shirt today, but yeah, that one is pretty much just as soft as this one. They're great. Yeah, we're gonna try and do something you know, possibly within the next year or so. We had for anyone who's not familiar with Podfest, which is on your shirt currently. So Podfest is a organization, repping an organization out of Orlando, Florida and Tampa, Florida, and they hold it in Orlando annually toward the end of January. And they actually just celebrated their 10th year, which is really fantastic. And they usually have an average of about 2,000 people that show up, and they're people from all over the world, and they go just to talk about podcasting.
Mm.
And I've not yet gone. I am going to try and go next year since there's a lot of creative projects I'm a part of that will, I think, really benefit from me going. So it's a really cool environment from what I've heard. We've mentioned Leo now twice. This is the third time. So
That's
he's been down there for years. He's gone and he's always coming back with more information, more people he's met. So we want to do that here in Kentucky. We want to create a like regional version of that here for people who are in Kentucky, but also the bordering states within a, you know, a small driving distance, not like a full day and a half drive. But we were able to meet with the Podfest people back in November
Mm.
in
We had
partner with
lunch with them and they were very nice. Chris
Mhm.
Mistos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you pronounced that way better than I did.
I don't know if I did, but seeing it in my head, I'm like, I think that's how it is. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
Yeah, I'll tag him.
Yeah, and so yeah, we want to sort of you know, not provide the exact same thing, but want to provide more locally focused and locally supportive. So we want to have some people who have had podcasts here in the region for a while
Mhm.
talk about things, everyone from experts and veterans like Tom to you know, people who are newer like you. And that way we can help each other continue to grow. There's always room to learn, and that's just what these experiences are about, is learning about the craft and about yourself, you know.
That's what I love about podcasting. Like I learn more about myself each episode and then like getting to talk to people, like obviously learning each time I talk to a different person and meeting people. That's really what I love about it. And I'm sure they talk all about that at Podfest and
Oh
this potential one.
yeah.
That's why I had some questions for you, and one of them was, what's a movie you could watch over and over again and never get tired
So that is a very hard question for someone who loves movies, but
of?
I I was in the Harry Potter phase for a hot minute. My mom perpetually is. Funny thing about that, sidestepping for a second before I give you my answer.
Mhm.
My mom was part of that situation where I don't know if you were even born yet or not. When I was in seventh grade, sixth grade, the Harry Potter movies came out, and maybe I was even a little younger than that. It may have been like fifth grade.
Like
I
the
was,
first one.
yeah, the first one,
Like,
and there was this situation that happened where parents were like, oh, this is promoting the devil or witchcraft and wizardry to hurt people. And that's not at all what it was. And my mom was my principal at a private school and
what?
had parents coming and showing her like passages from the book. And she was not reading the whole thing. So she's
Yeah.
like, you can't watch it. So I snuck into the house one day and made her watch it. I skipped through the credits so she didn't know what movie it was until halfway through. And my dad and her were like, oh my God, this is such a great movie. And I'm like, guess what? It's Harry Potter. So she's,
Wow.
yeah, you're welcome, mom.
That is so smart of you at that age, like, and that's a like that is such a good way to like trick them. My mom was like that too, like hearing from other people that how it's bad and everything. But I mean, they talk about the dark arts and how you should use the light arts, the light magic. Like if you just focus on that part instead of all the negative parts, like metaphor for life. But like that's really what it is. Like they're Harry's not into the dark art.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, he's sort of like that purveyor of the light, you know?
Yeah.
So
He's
yeah, it's all about perspective, and you can sort of, finagle anything the way you want to make it positive or negative, you know.
yeah. I think I mean obviously Harry Potter is like huge. Like my siblings have been I always felt it always made fun of me because like I never actually read the books or watched the movies or
Mhm.
was into it, but like I was younger, I'm not into reading, like
Yeah.
so like and they just made fun of me and it made me kind of not want to watch it, but I went to Harry Potter World when it like first opened and that's what I remember like I thought it was cool even though I wasn't really into it. I had looked up to my siblings, but they all made fun of me. But like I remember getting they all three got wands and then I'm like crying because I feel left out.
Oh.
I ended up like I picked the elder wand, like Dumbledore's wand, and like my sister's stolen it from me, but they're like get the elder wand, like blah blah blah. But I don't know. I was taking like the house quizzes this morning
What
and
are you? Which house?
uh I took it once. Well, I took it in high school. It said Ravenclaw. I took it this morning, and I hate that they asked like dawn or dusk, and
Yeah.
I regretted my answers. Because I said morning. I'm really not like a morning person. And then it said white or black. I'm like this. It was stressing me out.
Yeah.
So at first it gave me Hufflepuff. And then I
Mhm.
felt bad for the owl because like I love owls, but then I'm like I hate cages, so I chose cat.
Mhm.
So like I think the second one was more accurate and that's a Gryffindor. So
Okay. Yeah, I've gotten Gryffindor in the past when I was younger. I did it a couple of times, like through different phases of life.
Mhm.
Started Gryffindor, went to Slytherin at one point, and now I'm a Hufflepuff, and I've stayed a Hufflepuff. So I think that's where I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be.
That's what it was at first for me. It said Hufflepuff, but that's what the light and dark and the dawn and dusk. That really tripped me up. I think
Yeah.
I'll take Gryffindor. Like I felt that was a little more accurate. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's what my sister says she's taken it several times and we keep saying Slytherin and I'm like, ooh. I'm like, can I trust you?
Right. Oh God,
I
they're
feel
such good
like
movies.
all of them though.
Yeah, they're so good. And that is like it was one of the first thing that came to mind for me. But then I was like, oh, what there's like, there's so many movies. And finally I landed on a different one,
Okay.
which is Free Guy. If you haven't seen it,
That I did see it last year. It is really good. I told other people to watch it after I watched it because I was like, I mean, it was good on different levels of good. Like,
yeah, it's Ryan Reynolds. I mean, you got me there, immediately. I'm like, yep. And then you got, Joe Curie, who's in Stranger Things. You got, Taika Waititi, who is in, several Marvel things. He was the guy who originally was in What We Do in the Shadows. The cast is great. The graphics are great. You
that's
know,
It and the Mariah Carey part, like I think I was obsessed with that song for like a while after.
I know, right? It brought it back 100%.
It's still a vibe. Like I will dance to that now.
It's just such a perfect movie. Like I honestly, Disney Plus probably is like, oh, it's the weekend, because what I do on the weekends is Friday and Saturday night. I typically will put that on before, like while I'm going to sleep,
Oh, really?
and then put a timer on so the TV turns off and it stops playing, and I fall asleep to it. And so I actually did that last night, funnily enough. Because I'm like, oh, I already know it. It's a fun movie. It's not scary in any way. It's very innocent. It's just a fun time. So I, fall asleep pretty quick, which is nice.
I like that. That's like a good thing. That's what I used to always fall asleep to TV too, but it'd be like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So
Yeah. I actually have a friend who fell asleep when her husband was watching that. And it was a part where I think it was Charlie and Max started yelling at each other back and forth. She woke up and she's like, what are you watching?
you didn't
What?
know.
Screaming. She had no idea what he was watching. She just like woke up, opened up one eye, and was like, why are they yelling? She got like startled awake. It was hilarious.
I bet she started laughing after because I don't know.
In the morning, she was. In the middle of her like nap on the couch, she was not. So.
Free Guy, the romantic part, like I loved how that like all went together. But
Yes. It's a movie that also sort of makes you think about, yourself in a lot of ways too.
yeah, those are the best ones.
Mm-hmm.
I had what were you gonna say something?
I was just saying it's a great escape, but it's also a good reflection piece as well.
Yeah. That's what it said that is on Disney Plus. I don't have Disney Plus. I wish I did.
Yeah, I'm using the login from someone else. Don't tell him.
But ask for it, but then they might catch on. So and
Right.
change the password. I don't want them to do that to you.
Thank you.
That's what I do watch. Like someone when they ask me to watch their dog, like I only look forward to the Disney Plus. Like I don't know. That's like a nice that have so many like options.
It's great because you can go and have like a nice little reminiscing walking down, your childhood alley kind of thing, and just get to be a kid for a little while again, which is nice.
I know. My other I love asking people like what their favorite color and what their favorite number is. I find it interesting.
Yes. So favorite color has always been blue, but it's always like a dark, like royal blue.
Mm,
I like really deep colors. I like a really dark purple. I like dark red. It's always dark and rich colored, which is interesting.
I remember you telling me this now. Um,
Mm,
I don't know how or why it got brought up,
I don't either.
but maybe I asked it randomly. I asked like these questions. Like I find it interesting. Like I remember you telling me now, and I thought it was cool because it's like just like I think of like dark ruby, dark royal colors. Like that's
Mhm.
cool to me.
Yeah. And
Was
then favorite number. It's between two. I finally settled on one. The number's 10 and the number's 12. And I don't know where 12 came from, but I just liked it. Number 10, my birthday is on March 10th, so I think that's where 10 came from. But I played basketball when I played back when I was younger in both numbers. The number 12, it just sort of it like won over this time.
mm,
That's where I'm in my 12 phase instead of my 10 phase, I guess. I don't know, but yeah.
that's what I think of 12 as like a very like encompassing number. Like are there 12 disciples? I don't know, but like there's also like 12 like the zodiac and there's like
Yeah. I didn't even think about it that way.
yeah, there's 12 is like very like end all be all.
Mhm.
Um yeah, that's interesting. That's oh my other question was like if you were on an island and you had like three restaurants you could choose in a food court, what would they be?
By the way, I just want to compliment you because like you gave me these questions in advance and I was like, these are some really great questions.
Really?
Um, three restaurants that I would choose. So I'm gonna go in an interesting order here from most current to least. So by that I'm meaning the time period. I always think of things in terms of memory where it has something meaningful to me.
Mm.
So for example, 610 Magnolia, that's out of Louisville. It is a tasting menu. I did
I
an
think we talked
episode on
about
that.
that on Mom's
Mhm.
podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, I talked a little bit about there. I also have an episode involving that that had, I think that was the Ratatouille episode, and I'm going to be possibly doing it again as well. So maybe a sneak peek here coming up. But so 610 Magnolia, it's done by Chef Edward Lee. He was on Top Chef in one of the, I think it was like season 10 or something like that, and it's really good. Just really good tasting menu.
You know, my boyfriend lives in Louisville, so I need to get him to take me there or something.
Yeah, that's it's a definitely a very special kind of, place. It is not cheap. But I got very lucky because a friend of mine actually had gotten a job, and he ended up treating a couple of us to go because he's like, I've never gotten to make just really crazy expensive, like stupid choices, and he's like, I want to go to a tasting, restaurant, so this is what I'm going to do. So and then we went again last year because we go for our annual fancy pants dinner, as we call it, and we went again
Treat
last year.
yourself.
Yeah, so it was really great. So that would be my first one, and it would be from the first time I went because it was just like this whole new experience. I didn't know what to expect
Yeah.
with it. The second one would be Yoshi's Japanese restaurant. Yoshi was this gentleman who owned it, and he and his wife ended up going back to Japan prior to her dying. She was getting really sick and was getting ready to pass away. So they wanted to be surrounded by family, be back home, so that was a place that was open before I was born. My mom ate there when she was pregnant, and it's just, they had the best sushi rolls. The miso soup was great. They had this really interesting like side dish. It was like a pasta salad, but not, it was really interesting. It was like long noodles too. Didn't expect that. But yeah, I would take that from like, I'd say 2000, like 2004 Yoshis. And then the third one would be 1990s Stevie B's, which is I don't know what it's like now because I mean it's been a long time, over 20 years since I ate there, but it was this little just hole in the wall at the time of a rib place. And so they had the best barbecue sauce and shoestring fries, and there's always this really nice charcoal that came on the ribs. It was
Mm,
amazing. I'm salivating. I'm
I
currently
know.
salivating.
Me hungry. What is the tasting menu? Is that where they have like small stuff, or do they change the menu every day?
Yeah, so it's actually sort of a combination of both. A tasting menu, at least for 610, it's smaller dishes, and you're getting about, I think it's like 5 or 6 courses,
Uh,
and they do change it seasonally. So at 610, they'll have it for like 3 or 4 months, and then they'll move to another menu. So it's
uh,
never the same.
huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
they all sounded really good, especially the ribs at the well, even the Japanese food. Like I don't go to Japanese food. I didn't growing up because my parents didn't like it, and usually if your parents don't like it, they're probably not going to take
Right.
you to go out to eat. So I never had Chinese or Japanese, and then like I do like it. I like sushi and I like that stuff.
Yeah.
And I never liked ribs, but now I do. That's what I was thinking of a question earlier I didn't write down, but like, have your taste buds changed from a kid to as an adult? Like, did you not like anything and then you did like something, or vice versa?
That's a good question too. So I was an interesting child. It's gonna be good when someone starts off that way. I would, as a kid, my mom would cool off a piece of asparagus after it was done cooking and give it to me, and I'd walk around the house eating it.
Really?
Yeah, as like a toddler. I don't know of any other toddler that's like, yeah, asparagus is great. But my taste buds have slightly changed over time, not too much. I've always been a pretty open eater. I'm usually I'm willing to give things a shot at least once or twice. There's certain things though I will not eat. For example, chicken's feet. Not gonna do chicken's feet
Oh, yeah,
or any kind of feet of any kind. Pig's feet, duck's feet. Yeah, don't want it. Don't need it. Pickled things, not the biggest fan of. Like, I like a pickle.
Mm,
I like jalapenos.
me too.
I could go for beets. I
Mm,
prefer fresh beets over, like pickled.
okay.
I don't want no feet. I don't want no eyeballs. None of that.
I think I agree with you there. Like, maybe I'll try it once to say I did, but
Mhm.
like I that is fascinating. People eat the like darnest things. Like, whoever thought of eating an eyeball or a foot? Like, what?
The only thing I can think of is maybe like because there's certain cultures that do actively still eat things like that.
Mm.
I think maybe for some of the cultures, it was sort of a way of them giving thanks to the animal for dying. So they used everything.
Oh,
I was listening to something recently. Yes. Okay. So it was the Off Menu podcast.
okay.
And that's actually sidestepping there partially where I got some of my inspiration from for my podcast because they have it set up as your dream meal.
Mm,
And so they have an appetizer or, they call it a starter. They
mm,
have sparkling or still water and so on and so forth. And so it's sort of where I got some inspiration for my setup. But
mm,
there's a gentleman who's speaking on the last episode that came out, and he was talking about when they would, end up having an animal that they would have to slaughter and eat. They would even use like the ligaments for instruments and stuff. Like,
mm.
I appreciate them not wasting, but don't know how much I want to play a ligament string myself. So
That is funny. That so they try to use like every part of the animal. I can understand where they're coming from.
yeah.
I heard you talk about that podcast on Tom's too.
Mm-hmm. It's a fun one. Just two British comedians. Actually, really, the two top podcasts I listened to were that one and Parenting Hell, which is also two British comedians. They're British comedian dads. So if you have kids, you need to listen to that because there are so many ideas that are shared. There's so many hardships that are shared. Like they get fan mail written in, and the fans are like, I don't feel alone in parenting because of your podcast. Hearing other people do stupid things has made me feel less bad about the things I've done. So I don't have kids. This podcast is partially birth control.
That's a good point. That's funny. I need to tell my siblings to listen to that. Um,
yeah. Fun.
also on Tom's podcast, you mentioned like sharing mistakes with people.
Mm-hmm.
I um I mean, I feel like I do that on my podcast. I really like that, and I feel like more people should, because we can all learn from each other. Like writing into all that, we can definitely all learn from each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what was my? Oh, do you have a specific mistake you've made that you would want to tell other people not to make?
Yeah, I'll get deep with you here for a second because this is what you're about. I feel like is
Yeah.
just really getting to the quick of things. So, my mistake would be the choice in men I've had. I'm kidding and I'm not at the same time. It's more so my choice in people in the past. I did not until about 2 years ago really have much self-worth. I was someone who did not care for myself like I needed to, who didn't think very much of myself, who like people would be like, oh, you're this and you're that and you're this. And I'm like, I don't see it. I'm like, I don't know why people hang out. Like, it was just all of these really negative, intrusive thoughts. And part of that is depression, part of that is anxiety, part of that is PTSD, and so all of these little things eventually they culminate and they make something much bigger than themselves to make things hard. But I surrounded myself with people who either were in a very same like unhealthy emotional state, weren't working on themselves. People that I surrounded myself with were people I would not I would not try and grow toward being like. They weren't going to help me become a better version of myself. And at the end of the day, if anything, it was making me be stagnant. And so whether it was men or it was women I was being friends with, or whatever, I just made some sometimes really unintelligent and unsafe decisions. We all sort of have like this moment where we're like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't get really hurt, or I'm glad I didn't get murdered. I got one of those. And it's like all you can do is learn from it, because eventually you will learn one way or another. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom. I think I've hit rock bottom twice, once in my early 20s and then about at age 30. Now here I am at almost 35. And I've finally have gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah, no, I feel more confident. I'm believing in myself more. I'm caring for myself more. And that's something a lot of us struggle to do. It's a very hard thing. And so I think just the mistake of not trusting myself too, and being someone who was not someone maybe I would want to trust. Like I just didn't have. It's interesting, my therapist talks to me about this.
Mhm.
We all have a built-in alarm system to an extent, and my wires somehow didn't completely like cross correctly. And so I could see where someone would tell me, oh well, if I went and did this, I'd be like, are you a maniac? What are you doing? But I wouldn't really care if I went and did something that maybe was a little questionable. And so it's like, I've not done anything completely insane or anything like that, but just maybe was hanging around people that didn't have my best interest in mind. So that's my big one that I would be good with, and really probably the biggest mistake that I do have, because it's been lifelong, just choosing people and learning who's the right type of person to have around.
That's I would You summed it up really good because I feel like mine's the same, and I feel like that's we connected on that, last time I saw you in person, especially. Um, but you summed it up really good, and like with our why we do have a built-in intuition, and then it gets messed up, and then we start like trusting things we shouldn't trust, and it's like completely like opposite, and then we become like our worst enemy basically, and then
Yeah,
we have to like decondition, go to therapy, think about it, talk about it, and accept that we can't turn back time,
mhm.
which like is important to us, and we should value our time and ourselves. Like we're the only self we got. But
Yeah.
you summed it up really good. I
Thank
like how you
you.
summed it up.
Yeah, and there's a musician I more recently came across. His name is Ren. He's out of England. I think I mentioned him to you last time we
Yeah.
spoke. There's a song he has called Hi Ren, and it's about almost 10 minutes long. And he's playing acoustic guitar like in the video. It's like a one shot kind of situation. So it's all live. And he does this like rap kind of vocalization, which is really interesting. And you may not expect initially from him just looking at him, but he talks in like versions of himself to himself during the song. So there's the whole like devil on the shoulder, and then like the depression part, and like all of this. But at the end, the reason why I brought this up, besides for it being an amazing lyrical song, like it's 15,000 stories in 10 minutes. There's a line he has at the end where he says, I must not forget, we must not forget that we're human.
Mm, yep.
And that's something we forget a lot. That's something my therapist has brought up to me too many times. She's like, you're not a machine. What are you doing? You're a person. You will make mistakes. You will not meet expectations. And it is okay.
That is such a good point. That's what I had it that I had like human being in my YouTube bio. Like I think I took it out like a few days ago, but like it was such a good reminder for me, and it still is to like I mean, I'm not perfect and we are here to make mistakes. Like if we were perfect, like we wouldn't be here. Like we would be dead or in heaven or like I don't know. Like the earth is where everyone makes mistakes. I,
Yeah.
that's my I you also talked you've brought it up to me before, and you talked about it a little bit on the podcast, the nonprofit you have, and I think that's, like, it's just cool, like, the storytelling idea, and
Mm.
that's such a great.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the process of filing for nonprofit status, and we're getting really excited to really get it up and off the ground running, but pretty much without giving away too much before we're actually like fully established, sort of like I did on Tom's podcast too, is we are focusing on preserving Kentucky's history through oral and written story. And there's so many people who don't have a voice, who don't have a chance to share their story. That's absolutely fascinating and educational. And just like I'm talking to you about, oh, well, I've heard this song that's just this person's story from across the pond. It's the same thing. There's someone in Appalachia who will share their story of hardship and be able to inspire people and help people who are around the world understand our neck of the woods a little more too. So we're wanting to not just have it for Kentucky, but also for the world to be able to experience and get to see too. So we're also going to have a big focus on mental health, which storytelling, journaling, that's all a big portion of therapy and mental health. So we're really excited. It's myself, it's Leo, and a lady named Sylvia Lovely, and we're very happy that we're going to be able to go on this venture together. So
That is so exciting. I know we have less than a minute. That's what I'm open to talking to you forever, but like that was the last question I had for you basically. I You've been giving me notes on this pod or for me for my podcast. That's a great thing about the group, but like I've loved talking to you.
you
Like,
too. Always
I
a
I would love to have you on my podcast like literally whenever you want.
Oh,
Like
thank you. I appreciate it. We'll chat sometime soon. I'll have you on mine too. We'll do it. I'm just currently in a chaotic state of the life, but we're almost out of it. We're almost out of the sea. So
that's yeah, I'll see you in a couple weeks too. So
yeah, we'll
thank
see each
you
other
for being
soon.
on.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Aw. Okay, well, I feel like it's gonna shut off